had singing, we've had cheering, we've had flag waving here at Trafalgar Square. Frank Bruno really has had an incredible reception from the tens of thousands of people that have gathered here today. He stopped the bus for a moment, but it's now preparing to leave the crowd, and Bruno's going on for a Victory Day lunch with many of the people that he thinks are responsible for Saturday night's victory with Oliver McCall. He's been proudly showing off the WBC heavyweight belt today, making sure that everybody's got a glimpse of it. Of course, he spent 9 years trying to win it. This was his 4th attempt. He was beaten by Lennox Lewis and beaten by Mike Tyson, and he finally made it on Saturday night with Oliver McCall. So there you have it from Trafalgar Square. Lots of happy people today. They've really had their fair chance to see their sporting hero, and they've obviously really enjoyed themselves here today. Let's hand you back now to the studio and Chris Scudder.
Thank you very much, Helen. I think the size of that celebration caught everyone by surprise today. With me is Claude Abrahams of the Boxing News. Would you agree with that, Claude? It was fantastic, wasn't it?
Oh, tremendous, yeah. Tremendous.
Now let's remind ourselves then of Frank's past. I mean, we did say and we did think that maybe his chance of winning the world heavyweight title had gone. Remember 1986 when he fought Tim Witherspoon? And this is what happened. When he was knocked out in the 11th round, I think it was, when Frank he was winning on points, wasn't he, that day? And lost it.
I think he was marginally behind, but he'd made a great start. And as had always been the case with Bruno, seemed to just run out of steam at the end.
Yeah. 1986 that was, 9 years ago, when he was, what, 24 years old. And that was the first attempt, but of course he then got a meeting with Mike Tyson in 1989. Not many people held up too much hope for Frank, and that's the way it turned out, but he certainly gave him a scare, didn't he?
Yeah, he had that one moment in the first round when he landed that left hook, and from then on it was survival for Bruno, but he still lived off the glory of that one punch.
Yeah, well, this was the end of the fight. We're going back live to the celebrations fairly soon, by the way, but this is just looking back at Frank's previous attempts to win the greatest prize in sport, as they called it, the 5th round, and Bruno stopped by Mike Tyson. And who knows, we wonder if Bruno will be fighting Mike Tyson again in the next 12 months or so. Do you think that's a realistic now? Is that the most likely option, Claude, do you think?
Well, I don't know about it being the most likely option, but there are two very serious options for Bruno. One is Tyson and one is Lennox Lewis. And I think if Bruno's people could make the choice, then they will go for Tyson.
Yeah, now Don King has a major role to play in this, doesn't he? He's muscled in on British boxing, hasn't he, in the last 12 months or so, and he's a big player on the world stage.
Well, King has regained his control of the world heavyweight division, and he'll be looking to put Tyson in with Bruno because there's pressure from Lennox Lewis's people to make the match, and obviously that they want to be in the position to fight Mike Tyson as well, and that means getting the title off Bruno.
Lewis's camp, Frank Maloney, his promoter and manager, says that he is the next challenger because he's the mandatory one with the WBC.
Well, Tyson is in fact the mandatory challenger. He's the #1 contender, but apparently there was an agreement at the WBC convention which stated that the winner of McCall and Bruno must meet the winner of the eliminator between Lennox Lewis and Lana Butler, and Lewis won that fight.
Okay.
Well, that's all in the future. Frank Bruno, for the very moment, is enjoying himself largely with those great crowds at the Bruno Victory Parade in central London, and our man on the bus is Mark Saggers.
Thanks very much indeed, Chris. We've spent some 10 minutes or so with Frank and his many fans at Trafalgar Square. The bus is now moving on to Park Lane, where there is a celebration lunch. Frank Warren alongside me. This has been a fantastic
it's unbelievable. They're taking Nelson's statue down there and they're going to put Frank Bruno's up there. It's been fantastic.
The people's champion. We don't really need to say too much more, do we?
That's it. I mean, it's tremendous, and the warmth towards him from all the people is unbelievable. Yeah, it's marvellous stuff.
It's been a great day, and he's now going along, which is very much part of Frank, to celebrate with some of the close friends that perhaps we don't know about who've been a part of this setup over the 13 years.
That's right. Well, the 13 years and the people who've helped towards the show, you know, all the family and everything. It should be a good afternoon. I hope so, anyway. I'm sure they'll all enjoy themselves.
And for you too, Frank, it's a real pep to your career too. I mean, it's been important for you, and Sports Network and Don King as well across the other side in the States seem to have got things together.
It's been great, you know. It's I mean, I can't. I mean, it's a pinnacle for me, and you know, I mean, what's happening here is tremendous. But you know, this is Frank's day, though. this is Frank. We all helped a little bit towards it, but he's the guy who got in the ring and actually did the business.
There he is up front of the bus now with Nicola, his eldest daughter, and with Laura and with Rachel. It's been very much part their day too, and well, the rain's never beaten Frank Bruno, and it's certainly not beaten him today as the bus now speeds away from the many crowds. And perhaps if we can, we'll try and get a final word with Frank just before we leave you. Frank, if we could just have a very final word. It's been a great day so far.
Very nice, unbelievable, Mark. You know what I mean? I'm just grateful for everybody that turned out today, everybody that organised it, everybody who was participating, Sky, Sports Network, everybody. Thank you very much, Mark. Very kind of you.
Thank you too, and have a great afternoon, and enjoy being heavyweight champion.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Mark. And I know everybody listening and watching Sky. Take it easy. Thank you very much. A lovely day. Nice one. Cheers.
So there we are. Frank says a nice one. We don't really have to say any more than that, do we? We've spent the last hour with the WBC heavyweight champion of the world, Frank Bruno, and his victory parade through the streets of London.
Mark Saggers, many thanks indeed. We'll see how he won that title in a couple of seconds or so when he took the title off Oliver McCall, of course, last weekend. But just remind ourselves again of his third attempt to win the world title. This was the fourth, a successful one. Claude Abrahams from the Boxing News lost to Lennox Lewis, and again, that was expected, wasn't it, in Cardiff, October 1993?
Yeah, it's probably Bruno's finest hour, I think, the best I've ever seen in box, and I thought he performed better against Lewis than he did against McCall.
We had all the razzmatazz that night, the Battle of Britain, they called it. But in many people's eyes, Frank was the true Brit, and I was there that night, Claude, you obviously were as well, and the bulk of the support, no doubt about it, was for Frank Bruno, and many people were willing him to win that night. You could see how hyped up he was. Lennox Lewis entering the ring now, and he was the champion, of course, then, Lennox, and it's funny how times change. Lennox Lewis now wants a piece of Frank Bruno. He wants to get that title back, and Bruno, do you think Claude was ahead on points before it was stopped that night?
Oh, no question, no question.
Yeah.
It's amazing that the three men that have beaten Bruno in world title fights are still all active today, and none of them have got the title.
Frank there is a battle scar. I think it was less marked last weekend, which you might expect having won it, but this was the end of Frank Bruno's third attempt to win the greatest prize in sport. Lennox Lewis, ruthless finish, and Frank so gamely standing up, and he showed that again last weekend, but there was no way he was going to get out of that one with his senses intact. He was very brave that night, but Mickey Vann, the referee there, stopping it, about to stop it, and Lennox Lewis making short work in the end of Britain's favourite son, and the WBC title going to Lennox Lewis. That was October 1993, and I think at that stage many people, didn't they, Claude, thought that Frank should really hang up his gloves. They didn't think going to get another chance of a shot at the title, but he did.
That's heavyweight boxing for you, and with 4 titles around, anybody's going to get a chance at the title. You know, Bruno's as worthy as any other, and now he's the champion. There's no looking back now. Bruno he's fulfilled the lifetime's ambition.
And so it came to be. It was September 1995 at Wembley Stadium when the fans flocked to see the King, Frank Bruno, and so it turned out as he took the WBC version of the World Heavyweight Championship off Oliver McCall, the man who'd taken the title off for Lennox Lewis, of course, who we just saw beating Frank Bruno. This is how it happened, the closing stages of the fight. He was very tired, wasn't he, Claude, that night? He'd been ahead, so far ahead on points, but I mean, if the fight had gone another round, you think he might have lost it?
It's hypothetical, isn't it, really? You could say in a 15-round fight, Bruno would have maybe paced himself differently, and he fought to win over 12 rounds, and that's exactly what he did.
Totally exhausted, but you can see what it meant to the people of Great Britain. And there's George Francis. You could see how emotional he was earlier, and how astounded he was by the turnout of all the fans who turned out in West London today on that Frank Bruno victory parade. So there it was, champion of the world. We've seen how the fans reacted today. Let me ask Claude Abrahams from the Boxing News finally. Claude, what does the future hold for Frank, do you think?
A lot of money, that's for sure. I think one more big fight. I'd like to see Frank call it a day, because he's reached the pinnacle of his career, and I'd like to see him go out a winner. But I think he's tempted by the rematch with Mike Tyson.
And that will happen?
I got a feeling it's going to happen, but I can't say for sure.
Claude, many thanks for joining us today. It's been a great day for Frank Bruno, and let us leave you with the marvellous scenes from the west of London today as Frank Bruno and the British public paid tribute to Britain's first British-born true world champion this century since Bob Fitzsimmons in 1897. These were the scenes a short time ago under the eyes of one British legend, Lord Admiral Nelson, looking down on another now. Frank Bruno, the new heavyweight champion of the world. And the thousands of fight fans, not only fight fans, the general public who have come to love this most public figure. And there he is. The green WBC World Heavyweight Championship belt, which he'd cherished all his life. And he's got it on a marvellous day, not just for him, but for Great Britain and the British sporting public. Frank Bruno, heavyweight champion of the world, and he's off to enjoy a sporting lunch in his tribute.